everyone knows that the Green Goblin is a massive part of Spider-Man's history. In fact, he's considered to be Spider-Man's greatest foe of all time. Well, what if I told you that there's actually more to his past than you first initially thought? Including a goblin before even Norman became the Green Goblin. My name is Lewis, and welcome to the channel that loves Spider-Man just as much as you do. So let's start with what's actually going down. In April of this year, a comic book writer known as J.M. DeMatteis is writing a 4-part miniseries called Spider-Man Shadow of the Green Goblin. Essentially, if you're not already excited by that name, let me just quickly run you through who J.M. DeMatteis actually is. So DeMatteis is basically one of the most prestigious Spider-Man writers of all time. He is the author of the recent Ben Reilly Spider-Man run, but most importantly and most notably, you'll probably recognize him as the man who wrote Kraven's Last Hunt, which is considered by the fans to be one of the best and most influential Spider-Man stories to have ever existed. Either way, this is going to be his new writing project coming into 2024, releasing in April, and I am super stoked. But what is it actually about, and what is the relevance to the past of Norman Osborn? Well, you see, that's where it gets interesting. This story is being marketed as the Osborn family secret reveal. I know, what other secrets could the Osborns have? It will be more about uncovering what led up to the creation of the Green Goblin serum and Norman becoming the Green Goblin himself. So this will take place during the early days of Spider-Man's career, within the first 30 or so issues of Amazing Spider-Man from the 60s. Heck, parts of the comic book could even take place before then. This book is set to follow 3 main characters as of right now. We know, of course, both Norman Osborn and Peter Parker will be involved within the story somehow. However, the 3rd main character that it will follow is a character known as Nels van Adder. Now, Nels van Adder is a very interesting character in the Spider-Man mythos. He's a very niche character, and he's a character that maybe some fans, even die-hard comic book fans, may not even know about. And that's because he's only ever had 1 appearance in a Marvel comic book. His only appearance in a comic book so far was in a flashback comic from 1977. Before the idea of a prequel series to expand more upon the Green Goblin was ever even thought of, Marvel had already explored this before in a comic called Proto Goblin, which was a single-issue comic touted as a flashback issue in 1977. This book included the story of a man called Nels van Adder, who was a lab assistant to Norman Osborn at the time. Norman was testing a serum which would end up becoming the Goblin Serum. And of course, in classic Norman Osborn fashion, he turns to his lab assistant to test the formula. It's exactly what any sane scientist would do, right? You know, just test it on your lab scientist. And of course, it goes horribly wrong, turning him into a giant red beast. I can't help but also imagine this was partly the inspiration for Bendis's Green Goblin in the Ultimate Spider-Man run. I don't know, a monster goblin's got to come from somewhere, right? Either way, the book mainly follows Arthur and George Stacy as they try and track down this monster until he is never seen again. This comic is actually really cool because it has appearances from Peter, May, Ben, and fun fact, it's actually the first chronological appearance of Gwen Stacy ever in the 616 universe, so that's cool, I guess. But I think the main talking point here is that the Nels van Adder story was never resolved, and DeMatteis looks to remedy that in the new Shadow of the Green Goblin series, where he will revisit Adder and his story, looking to wrap up the whole thing. In fact, the official synopsis for the book reads, Norman Osborn was not the first Goblin. Norman Osborn is the Green Goblin you know, but he is not the original Goblin. It's time to learn the shocking secrets of the Proto Goblin and its dramatic connection to the Osborn family. What roles does a young Peter Parker, who has not yet understood his great power and responsibility, play in this unfolding of events? So what is actually the big Osborn secret that has been built up for this comic to reveal? Well, since Van Adder is set to be one of the main focal points of the series, and since it's been touted to tie very closely into the Osborn family, I expect some kind of relationship with Norman, like a half-brother type thing. I don't know, it's Marvel Comics, you know, I would not be surprised if they went down that route. However, what will Adder's fate be come the end of this story? Will Nels van Adder become a more important character in the Spider-Man mythos, or will he kind of just fade into the background? Well, there are actually 2 options to what could happen here. The first option, I think, is pretty self-explanatory. They will end up killing the character off, as so he doesn't interfere with the rest of the 616 continuity, and obviously the rest of the Goblin stories that end up playing out in the 616 universe past this story. Or option 2, they could actually send him away and somehow keep him in, I don't know, some kind of underground laboratory. I don't know, that hasn't been done before, definitely not. And then bring him back in the current continuity with Zeb Wells writing. We also know that Norman and Peter are very closely knit in the 616 universe at this moment in time. So I imagine if they brought Adder back for a story down the line after this prequel comic by DeMatteis, I guess it could make sense. And also bringing back an old foe and, I don't know, an old friend might spice the story up a bit. I don't know how they're going to do it. I don't know where this could lead. It could lead in multiple directions, but my guess is that they'll probably kill him off. But knowing Marvel Comics, they'll bring him back at some point, so don't be surprised if somehow they reveal that he's been locked away somewhere for all this time. You know, you never know. One thing that I also think is interesting about this book as well is that it's also meant to dive very deep into the psychology of the Osborn family. Matteis also confirmed that it will show how Norman started his goblin-like tendencies even before the first goblin incident in the Amazing Spider-Man books. It will also show how it affected Harry's younger life and destroyed their relationship. I also love the idea of seeing Harry Osborn before Peter met him in college, because that means we get to see more of that character and more of the build-up to what we saw the relationship between Harry and his father be in the Amazing Spider-Man books themselves. We get to see how all the goblin stuff really destroyed Norman and Harry's relationship, and I think that's really, really cool. But either way, I want to know what all of you think about this. Are you excited for this 4-part miniseries by DeMatteis? I want to know all your thoughts in the comment section down below. I will obviously be reviewing it on the channel when it does come out, so make sure you subscribe for that. Leave a like on this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care, and peace.